Hello, my name is Peter Griffith and I am the founder of White Horse Theatre. It all began 40 years ago. I began my career not as an actor but as a drama teacher. Drama was at that point a subject in every British school, and so I went and became a teacher teaching drama, which I found very enjoyable, but I decided I didn't want to do it for the rest of my life. I remember still the first time I walked into the staff room at the school where I had my first job. I looked at the older teachers, people aged between 55 and 65, and I thought, oh God, whatever happens, I don't want to look like them when I'm that age. And so I decided, after 5 years of teaching, that instead of being a teacher and saying, you should go and see plays, drama is good, I wanted to become an actor and say, look, this is drama. And so that's what I did. I prepared myself first of all. I wrote 2 plays. One was a version of the well-known fairy tale Hänsel and Gretel, and I arranged that as a play for primary schools. And I sent publicity around, and I managed to get 90 bookings for that production of Hänsel and Gretel. And I then also wrote or adapted a folk play, just 15 minutes long, which could be performed in the streets or in pubs. And that was how the story actually began of White Horse Theatre. I then put an advertisement in a newspaper called The Stage, which was at that time the place where actors would look for jobs. And I put an advert in, I think it read something like, who fancies the idea of joining me in a community theatre group in Somerset, that's in southwestern England, probably no money, but lots of fun. It doesn't sound like a very inviting sort of advertisement, but about 20 people applied for this and said yes, they'd like to try. And so I held auditions, I invited them down for a weekend. We even managed to give them their expenses because we did workshops, theatre workshops for the whole weekend, and on the Saturday evening we put on a spontaneous show. Everyone had to sing a song in our local pub, and we passed a hat round and then divided the money between all these people who'd come to audition so that everyone had their expenses paid. Anyway, I chose 3 of those actors and we went ahead and they joined me in September 1978. And we began by rehearsing the play for pubs. It was very short, just about 15 minutes long, a folk play about St. George and the Dragon. And I went round pubs getting bookings for this. And so by the time my actors joined me and we were able to start performing, within 1 week we'd rehearsed our pub play, and then at our first weekend we went out to 3 pubs and we could perform the play 3 times in an evening, one at 8 o'clock, one at 9 o'clock, one at 10 o'clock. And so we earned our first week's wages by doing that, which was a really exciting feeling. We had no subsidy or anything, we'd earned our first week's money. And for the next 2 or 3 months we lived off that pub play, doing different pubs each time. I used to really enjoy doing pub shows because you'd go into a pub that's quite full. Half the people there would be there because they'd seen our posters and they knew that there was going to be some sort of theatrical event in the pub that night. The other people hadn't noticed the posters and had no idea what was going on. And suddenly, amongst them, we would start performing theatre and they wouldn't know what it was about. And that I found very exciting and very entertaining to do that. My own character was a doctor, a very, very fat, lecherous doctor who used to go around chasing women and who would bring St. George and the Dragon back to life at the end of the play because he was such a wonderful doctor he could bring dead people back to life. This is So that was what they call a medieval mumming play. And after 3 months of doing that, and also doing workshops at weekends, we were able to do the first performances of Hänsel and Gretel, and we then did 90 performances of that, and we were launched. From then onwards, we existed as a theatre company. We were making enough, well, we weren't exactly rich, but we were just making enough money to live and to buy a little bit of petrol for our van. And we then started doing more and more plays. We were an ensemble company, so when we'd got one play ready, we could start devising the next. We did a play based on Somerset rural life in the 19th century. We did plays for all the different age groups in schools, and we had a repertoire of about 10 different plays, some of them very short, some of them full length, and we would do these in streets, in pubs, in village halls, in proper theatres, wherever we could find an audience. And that took us from 1978 up till 1980, and then we had a sudden stroke of extraordinary luck. We received an invitation to come to Germany. This was completely out of the blue. We hadn't expected it at all. It turned out that at that time in Germany there were hundreds of thousands of British soldiers. Germany was the NATO front line, and these soldiers of course had children, and so there were about 60 British schools in northern Germany, and they had sent a sort of talent scout over to England to find a theatre group that would be suitable to perform plays for the Germans, for the British schools in Germany, and they chose us. I don't know why. We didn't know it was happening, but we suddenly received a letter saying, would we like to come to Germany? And of course we said yes. And so we went off on a 6-week tour of Germany, which was extraordinarily exciting. Performing in a new language, well, no, not a new language, but in a new country. And it was while we were performing in these British schools that we went into a pub in a town called Unna, which is just down the road from here now, and a group of English teachers, Germans who were teachers of English, heard that we were talking of English and came across and introduced themselves because they wanted to practice their English. And we explained to them what we were doing, and they said, well, come and do it in our school. And we thought, well, that's ridiculous. No one would understand an English play in Germany. But they persuaded us, and so we went along and gave the first White Horse Theatre performance in a German school. And we found it worked. To our astonishment, the standard of language teaching in Germany was far higher than the standard of language teaching in Great Britain, and they knew enough to be able to understand our play. And I suppose you could say we never looked back. For the next few years we would come back to Germany each year and earn most of our year's money, and then we'd go back to England and we'd perform at the rock festivals and the street theatre and the theatres back home in England. And it was while I was in Germany getting more and more bookings and finding that the Germans actually were quite enthusiastic about English language theatre that I met a German woman that I liked the look of. And yes, it's a romantic story. We're still together. We've got 2 children. We've been together for 33 years. Yeah. So that was how I started. I then moved my family set up from Britain to Germany, and I then had a family. I had a child to look after, and then a second child, and so I didn't want to be on tour all the time as an actor, and so I employed other actors to do the actual touring, and I started writing and directing the plays, and this just carried on more and more. Each year I would write 2 or 3 plays if I could, and I would direct plays, and the company just got bigger and bigger. Originally we just have 3 actors, and now we've got 32 actors who perform with us each year. And we don't just perform in a corner of Germany. We perform all over Germany and all over France, and we perform in China and Japan and Sweden and lots of different places, and the company seems to be expanding all the time. And when I look back, I can hardly believe it. It makes me feel very humble, but also very proud that this little crazy project that I had 40 years ago is now such a flourishing theatre company. And I'm still astonished that it's happened, but it has happened, and it's been a marvellous 40 years making it happen. We started off struggling to find audiences, and now in Whitehorse Theatre we're performing to over 400,000 people per year, which I just find astonishing. We don't just do plays, we also offer theatre workshops. We have one employee, Diana Jackson, who does nothing but go around from school to school doing theatre workshops. And not only do we do theatre workshops in German schools and European schools, but one of my sons has taken to theatre workshops in a big way, and he's now making a whole career out of giving theatre workshops for Chinese school pupils. And this is quite an exciting thing. I've no idea where this is going to land. I'm very proud that my son is working in the same sort of field as I am, although with him living in Shanghai I don't get to see him that often. We have a good 20 employees here who are permanent employees of Whitehorse Theatre. We've got people sewing and looking after costumes, we've got people making scenery, making stage properties, we've got a carpenter and a metal worker, and we've got an office full of wonderful ladies who are the tour managers and who get all the bookings and arrange for the accommodation and look after the actors. It's just getting bigger and bigger. People often ask me, where do the ideas come for the plays? I've written more than 50 plays now for Whitehorse Theatre, and some of in earlier days the ideas came mainly from my own children. They would always be good for ideas connected with school. Nowadays we often get good ideas from teachers. After a performance we give the teachers a sort of feedback sheet so they can say how they found the show, and one of the questions is, what sort of theme do you think we should do for next year's show? And so the teachers give us ideas and I then do the research, and a lot of our more recent plays have come from teachers' ideas. We sometimes ask the pupils as well. After every performance we have a question and answer session, and so we can ask the pupils, what themes would interest you? What do you think we should be making theatre about? And we come up with some fascinating ideas. Not all of them are quite to my taste. I haven't yet written a play about football, but perhaps I will sometime. Who knows?